Day 4, after being released from the ICU, Baxter had his first visitor who introduced himself as a lawyer represented by the insurance company who hesitated before shaking Baxter's hand prudently. Thomas Fife at your service, he stated with a shallow bow for comedic purposes. How's it going? Just effing peachy, Baxter replied. You up for a chat? Sure. What the hell? Nice to see someone who doesn't have some sort of medical apparatus in their hand, actually, and switch the TV to mute. I'm not going to take up much time. I'll be brief and to the point, unless you have any questions at the end. The man pulled a chair closer to his client, sat down, and continued. I'm going to say we've certainly got a case here against the driver who did this to you. I've read the police report and was going over your medical status. You're racking up quite a bill here, and it's far from over. With your permission, I'd like to take your case and see Karma work her magic in court. Well, this came out of nowhere. No cards, no flowers, and no letter, he thought, comedically, to himself. Oh, Thomas said absent-mindedly and pulled a card from inside his suit jacket and handed it to Baxter. That's where you can reach me any time. What all does this involve? What are your intentions? I intend to get every penny you deserve. From your medical costs and paying for what this person did to you out of their recklessness. We could go for attempted vehicular homicide. I mean, look at you. I'd like to bleed that bastard dry. What do you say? I'm not looking for financial gain, but I would like to see him serve time. That, to me, is far more important. To keep him off the streets and locked away so this won't happen to anyone else. That's what I think and what I have to say. You'll get disability, but not nearly as much as we could get out of this careless driver. I'm good, money-wise. I can still make a living once I'm back together again. Perplexed, Fife asked softly, leaning closer to his client, you do realize, Mr. Bennings, you'll never walk again, and that life will never be the same as before, right? That's all I can think about, Baxter said, and raised his voice. I'm not visually impaired, for shit sake. My arms still work, my brain functions. I can continue making computer programs till the cows come home. I want this piece of shit to suffer in hell behind concrete walls and cold iron bars. I want this person to think, feel, and live the remorse, and then some. Can you do that? Uh-huh. Yes, that's what I like to hear. Fife responded exuberantly as he stood. You're a fighter, and I like that. I'll start the proceedings, and you work on getting yourself ready for that day when victory will be yours, Mr. Bennings. Anything you need or questions you have, he said and pointed to his card still in Baxter's hand, you just give me a call. I do have a question, if you've got a few. Sure. What can I help you with? This person, what can you tell me about them? Thomas sat back down and powered on the tablet. He ran his finger over the screen and tapped at a folder. What do you want to know? Was it male or female driving? Hmm. Looks to be male. Age 28. Was driving a Jeep Wrangler. And it appears he obtained some injuries, namely a concussion and a broken femur. Nothing major compared to yours. Doubtful he felt any pain as was well under the influence. Of what? They are not specifying. Anyone else hurt? He was alone and no one else was hit. Good. He did enough damage. Amen to that. Anything else you need answered or that I can help you with? I think we're good for now. Thank you, Mr. Fife. You're more than welcome. I will be in touch again after we set up a preliminary hearing. I'll be there on your behalf. I'll be representing you, so no need to be there. Several wings away and a couple floors above, Sean Cross was locked away in a soundproof room, silenced by all other detoxing patients. His recovery was impeded by a broken femur, which he suffered the afternoon he was high as a kite in his Jeep and bulldozed a motorcycle off the highway before he, himself, drove off the road and into a thick billboard pole, which crumpled the front of his Jeep into a crescent shape. Ironically, the billboard was advertising a campaign about buzzed driving being just as bad as drunk driving. Sean was so strung out he felt nothing when being cut and pulled from his vehicle by the paramedics assisting the accident. The ostrich egg-sized bump on his forehead, left by a suicide knob on the steering wheel, was now nearly flat, leaving one hell of a mark in blacks, blues, and greens with some red still around the edges, looking like he'd been kicked in the head by the hoof of a Clydesdale. As Sean detoxed from his longtime friend, his days blended all into one from pure hell. He needed that drug to feel alive again, to take the pain away and to be free from the constant thoughts in his head. Thoughts that never made a complete connection, but scrambled right into a new one to take its place. His body ached, his skin cold then hot, back and forth. His hands, now restrained, couldn't scratch the itch or pick at his skin, and it was about to drive him over the edge of insanity. Worse, though, than any of this was his nurse. She introduced herself as Maxine with a wide grin of lipstick bright red, reminding him of the Joker. Her tits, though, now he could get into those puppies. Nice and full and perky. He guessed a double D. She had a quick wit and sarcastic answer for everything coupled with an accent straight out of Brooklyn. There were times he would wake to his bed shaking and find her on top of him, her uniform snaps all undone, the white material waving at her sides as she bounced up and down on his swollen cock and screaming out in pleasure as she played with her enormous breasts, sometimes bringing them up to her mouth, ruining her lipstick, making her look like some deranged clown when she was done. Maxine did have a cruel side to her. She seemed to enjoy smacking his face repeatedly when he was just about to doze off while she was doing her routine assessments. When feeding time came, she delighted teasing him when he was most ravenous, waving it toward his face, then pulling it back as he was about to raise his head. Heaven forbid if he wouldn't comply to her demands. She would reach below the sheet and put one hell of a grasp on his balls and start to twist them until he passed out. He didn't even want to know what she did when his lights went out, but he would wake to find some ritualistic-looking symbols scratched into his chest, stomach, and arms, his own encrusted blood, beating on the designs. Sometimes, when she gave him a bath, she would dribble soapy or dirty water into his eyes, impairing his sight, then dart around the room asking, "Where am I now?" "Huh? Guess where I am." The most absolute fright was when he woke, the room dark, but he could hear something rustling near his bed. It was drawing closer. Something touched his hand, and he hoped it was Maxine come to ride him like a wild horse. It had been a while, and his body quite willing. He could feel the blanket and sheet rising. "Is that you, pretty lady?" he asked, playfully. He heard a grunt in response, almost animalistic. "Don't be shy, babe." It grabbed his hand, worked its nails up his arm. He could feel her breath nearing his face. Her scent, unlike he expected, was foul and bitter. The nails raked over his shoulder, toward the pillow. He felt her body climb on top of his and bestrode his torso without removing the covers. "This is new," he moaned. The hand went beneath the pillow and began to raise his head. "A kiss? Bring it on," he said, despite the uncouth scent. He couldn't remember which happened first. It was all so quick. Before he knew it, a light shone bright on the face, and there was a guttural, wet snarl behind the long fangs that smeared straight into his face. Bloody fangs that looked as if they had just fed upon something, grinding and dripping red into his face. He felt his chest tighten, his left arm began to tingle, and he passed out. Sean woke to a team of medics surrounding his bed. "He's back," the red-haired nurse said, and the doctor swooped in to check his pupils with the penlight. He felt a needle poke into his arm and watched as others rolled a machine away and out the door. Where's Maxine? Who? The doctor asked. My nurse, Maxine. Oh, fuck. Did that thing get her? There's no nurses here by that name, the red-haired nurse told him as she taped the IV to his arm. As he began to describe Maxine, the nurse rolled her eyes and turned her back to him, but he could clearly hear her mutter, "Freakin' tweakers, I swear." The stuff they come up with.